agree that the judiciary is a co-equal branch of government and it is your obligation as a member of the executive branch to honor decisions made by the highest court of the land? Yes or no, Secretary?
We are
Yes.
abiding by all federal judges' orders, absolutely.
So yes, it's a co-equal branch of government. Okay, well, let me ask you a follow-up question to that. Do you agree that Congress is a co-equal branch of government and it is your obligation as a member of the executive branch to honor legislation and appropriations duly authorized by Congress? Yes or no?
Yes, that's why
Thank you.
I'm thrilled to work
Well,
for
let me
the
ask you the
president that is
follow-up question
enforcing
here,
the
because I
laws.
have a lot of them. Do you agree that Article 1 of the Constitution gives Congress the power of the purse? Yes or no?
Yes, it is a duty
Do you
of
believe
Congress
that,
to be
let me
able
ask
to
you another
appropriate
follow-up, it's
funds.
just yes or no. Do you believe you have the power to disregard congressional appropriations and unilaterally repurpose funds that have been duly appropriated by Congress? Yes or no?
Ma'am, we are not doing that.
So the
We are
answer to
using
you is no.
dollars as to
All
how
right,
they
well,
were
let me, it was a
appropriated.
yes or
We're
no,
ensuring the
Secretary. Let me
programs have
continue.
integrity.
Interestingly, you said no. But since you've been Secretary, you have repeatedly disregarded the law. You have illegally impounded funds that Congress appropriated and that your branch of government must implement pursuant to the law. Yet you've closed offices established in law, including the Office for Civil Rights and Civil Liberties, the Office of the Immigration Detention Ombudsman, the Office of the Citizenship and Immigration Services, and you've canceled contracts for programs authorized in law, including shelter and service programs and citizenship and integration grants. You've obstructed and roughed up members of this committee as they attempted to conduct congressional oversight, and then you vilified them. But my question is, if they were so bad, why were they allowed to go in after to conduct oversight? Let me just continue. You redirected funds to terrorize our communities. You created taxpayer-funded political propaganda campaigns to terrorize families and children who don't sleep at night because of the terror of those commercials that you are putting out there. You hold sick, disrespectful press conferences in my state where, let me be clear, you are not welcome. You corruptly used emergency authority to avoid procurement to make Trump's private prison donors richer by directing $45 billion for them to expand ICE detention centers. You defunded work to address real threats to the homeland, all while you pursued college newspaper editors, labor leaders, and even a Harvard scientist who failed to declare frog embryos at the airport. Clearly, we don't have time for all my questions, so I have 13 pages worth of questions that I will be submitting to the record that I expect you and the administration to answer. But here is my final question to you. When you took your oath, did you swear to support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America? Yes or no?
Yes, I did.
So I find that laughable. You don't behave like someone who takes that oath seriously. And let me tell you why. We don't live in a dictatorship or a monarchy. Trump's will is not the guiding doctrine of this nation, and our country is not a playground for his or your twisted authoritarian fantasies. We are a democracy. We defend the Constitution and we affirm the rule of law. We respect the co-equal branches of government and we uphold our rights, even when we disagree. The foundation of our nation is based on a core set of constitutional rights upon which our prosperity, our pluralism, and our peace depend on it. You, however, have been leading this work for 116 days, and in that time, you have profiled and dehumanized our neighbors. You've betrayed our constitutional commitment to due process. You've deported United States citizens. You've undermined the courts. You've broken the law. You've engaged in corruption, and you've weaponized the immigration system to violate civil rights. As Senator Murphy perfectly stated, your department is out of control, but you're responsible. You have betrayed the sacred fundamentals of your oath. And I believe to my core that you are not fit to hold the office. And I again, to your face, demand your immediate resignation. And I put it and place it on the record for all of us to see. With that, Chairman, I yield back. I want to respond to this whole thing about transparency that I continue to hear my colleagues talk about.
I rise today to speak in favor of my bill, the Special Interest Alien Reporting Act of 2025, an essential piece of border security transparency legislation. A special interest alien, or SIA, is a non-U.S. person who, based on a DHS analysis of travel patterns, may pose a national security risk to the United States or its interests. My bill would require the Department of Homeland Security to publicly release monthly reports on the number of special interest aliens encountered at our borders, their countries of origin, and where they were encountered. Public reporting of SIAs will increase the transparency and accountability that are critical to the health of our constitutional republic. Congress has the authority and responsibility to provide transparency to the American people, which is exactly what my bill does. And I would argue the American people pay our paychecks, so they deserve to know the truth.
If you're really all about transparency, why is it that members of Congress can't show up to a detention center and do their congressional oversight and see what's going on in those detention centers? It seems like you're okay with transparency when it's convenient to you, but when it's about members of Congress, regardless of the party that they are part of, going to one of these detention centers, a holding centers, when we have heard that pregnant women are sleeping on the ground, starved, people are days wearing the same clothing because they're at a holding center where they should have been going through due process. And unfortunately, there's no transparency there because what they end up saying is send an email or transparency only works when, it's convenient to the Republicans. So I just want to say it's really hypocritical to hear my colleagues here talk about transparency when they seem to be hiding the violation of human rights every single day. And I want to be honest about the bill we're debating right now. This is not a bill of national security. If it were, it wouldn't propose to make sensitive security information public. No, this bill is just Republicans' latest attempt to give the Trump administration another anti-immigrant tool so that they can continue to do the fear-mongering that they know how to do so well. It's just another list that Donald Trump and Kristi Noem and Republicans and the sponsor here can use to justify their unlawful, abusive actions. You want to disappear people from California? Just say that new members of the latest criminal organization were found crossing the southern border. You want Americans to surrender their rights? Well, fearmonger and tell them that a special interest alien from a criminal organization is operating a cell in their neighborhood. The Trump administration has already demonstrated to us that they are comfortable abusing every tool and system we have under the guise of national security and protection. The administration has weaponized every well-intentioned tool that this body has authorized to make immigration more humane. What makes us think that this list will be any different? I refuse to hand over greater authority and power to DHS, given all the ways that they're running rampant through our states and cities, breaking down doors, kidnapping mothers, children, and law-abiding neighbors who have contributed to our communities for years. They have proven to be completely untrustworthy, downright hostile to oversight, accountability, and compliance with the rule of law. And so they can't be entrusted with additional tools and mandates with which they can violate our rights. Let me be very clear. For Trump and Noem, today's report is tomorrow's anti-immigrant fascist tool. I urge my colleagues to vote against this bill, and with that, I yield back to the ranking member.
On Friday, our communities in Franklin Park, Illinois, a community represented by Congressman Chuy Garcia and I, witnessed inevitable violence resulting in this president's administration's unconstitutional, unlawful, unaccountable actions. Near a school, after dropping off his child, ICE agents under the jurisdiction of the Department of Homeland Security shot Silverio Villegas Gonzalez. He died a few hours after. Silverio's death is not an isolated incident. It is a consequence of Trump's anti-immigrant agenda. ICE's pattern of racial profiling and their unlawful policing in our communities has real death consequences. The militarized tactics used by DHS and the deployment of ICE agents with no transparency, no oversight, undermine the rule of law, and we know this. It creates fear and chaos in our communities. People in Chicago right now are wondering, can I drop off my child to school today? Will I be shot by ICE in front of my child? No one should have to ask that question and make decisions based on, will my child see me get killed by ICE today? Men in masks conducting these jump-off traffic stops without badges, without body cameras, making arrests without valid warrants are tactics that put our community in harm's way. And DHS is not above the law. Let me say that again. DHS, Department of Homeland Security, is not above the law. A traffic violation should never amount to a death sentence. And we have demanded a full and thorough investigation of what happened that day. They should immediately release body camera footage, if they have it, and warrants and relevant information on this case, because what ICE put out in their statement is not consistent with all of the footage we have seen of that day. So I have a couple questions in the 2 minutes that I have left. This question is for Ms. Gupta. We have seen an increased use of traffic stops, particularly these jump-out traffic stops in Chicago that put our communities at increased risk of incidents like what happened to Silverio. What authority does ICE have to conduct traffic stops? And what do families need to know if they're pulled over by ICE?
Yes, thank you, Congresswoman. So, unfortunately, related to the Supreme Court decision we saw this week, ICE has been given a green light to target people based on where they might be going, based on what they look like, and they are in our streets now trying to stop people. What we've seen around the country with traffic stops is that in some instances, these are ICE officers making stops. In other instances, it is ICE working with state or local police who make the traffic stop and then tag in ICE to come in and do the federal side of the enforcement. Now, in jurisdictions where there are 287G agreements, where there are formal collaboration between state and local police and DHS, local police themselves are authorized to make immigration arrests, to interrogate people during the course of routine traffic work. And in those instances, we are seeing many folks get arrested for immigration violations simply when they're pulled over for alleged speeding.
So following up on that, I want to ask a question to Mr. Lynch. We know that, you were talking a little bit about workforce and complementary workforce instead of competition, which we know intentionally designed to call it competition so that there's fear and hate of our immigrant neighbors. So we know that undocumented immigrants contribute more than $100 billion in taxes each year. I'll say it again for those in the back. $100 billion in taxes each year. But the chilling effect of the kind of enforcement activities that the Trump administration is using is harder to understand. So what do we know about the chaos and fear of mass disappearance? What do we know it will do to impact the economy? And will people file taxes if the IRS is now using that as a way to be able to detain and deport people?
So you're absolutely right. We know that undocumented immigrants now are paying roughly $100 billion a year in taxes, about two-thirds of that to the federal government. They pay into Social Security, into Medicare, and that improves the finances of the system because they're not eligible to receive those benefits. So it's a huge improvement to our finances there, which helps all American citizens. And what's happening now with these raids, we're seeing not only that, for example, in agriculture, not only are they undocumented immigrants afraid, but obviously because of the things that have been described here, many authorized immigrants are as well, and people are not showing up for work. People are making decisions not to appear. And as an example, I have friends who are 30-year immigrants to the United States, applied for citizenship, got married, have 2 kids, and they simply now have moved outside of the country because they don't want their American-born children to suffer the indignity of being stopped and arrested, possibly simply because of the color of their skin and the fact that they speak Spanish. So it is a damaging effect very broadly, not just among unauthorized immigrants, among authorized immigrants as well. And, of course, it affects everybody else in the economy. And
Thank you, Mr.
government.
Lynch. My time's up. Thank you, Ranking Member. In the last hour and a half of this first CHS Oversight Forum, we have built the case that President Trump, that Secretary Noem are unclear about the rule of law in our Constitution, And although they're unclear, they're also doing this intentionally because they think they can get away with it. So I want to remind them, the judiciary is a co-equal branch of government, and the executive branch is required to honor decisions made by the highest court of the land. Congress, we are a co-equal branch of government, and the executive branch is required to honor legislation and appropriations duly authorized by Congress. Members of Congress can and will conduct oversight of detention centers without previous notice, according to Public Law 116-93, reaffirmed in Public Law at 118/47. Everyone on U.S. soil has equal protection under the law and the right to due process protected by the 14th and 5th Amendments of the Constitution. So Secretary Noem, read the Constitution. These are the fundamentals and are not up for debate. The lawlessness, the lack of accountability, and the unconstitutionality with which Trump, Noem, Homeland, Miller, DHS, and ICE behave send a clear message that they do not respect the rule of law or the Constitution. Unlawful, unaccountable, unconstitutional. Those are the qualities of authoritarians and their terror forces. They want to confuse us. They want to rob us from our hope. They want to paralyze us with fear. They want to break us. But we know better. Our communities know better. We are informed, we are organized, and we are resisting. Because we understand that the unlawful actions used against immigrants today will be the same ones they use tomorrow on anyone they consider undesirable. Because we know that fascism always demands a public enemy. And because we believe in due process, because we believe in the rule of law and the Constitution, because we believe in our democracy in checks and balances and accountability, we believe upholding our civil and human rights ensures our collective safety. It is why we will continue to conduct these forums to shine a light on what is happening in our districts and to the people that we love. We, members of Congress, have the power to do so. And we will continue to oppose an agenda that attempts to demonize children of immigrants in this country. And let me be very clear. We're going to continue the way that Congressman Ruiz has, the way that Congressman Garcia has, the way that Congressman Davis has, Congressman Carter and others, showing up to detention centers and demanding that the Trump administration allow us, actually not allow us, we have the authority, open those darn doors because we demand to exercise our right to oversight. We're going to hold all of those who have perpetrated violence against our communities accountable. It is our responsibility, and it is what our constituents elected us to do. We're going to take off the mask, and we're going to defund these administration's terror force. And more importantly, we're going to fight for comprehensive, humane immigration reform that honors the communities that make this country great.
Governor, you have said that actions that bring all branches of government to stand in respect of one another underpin the guardrails of democracy. Is it your assessment that this administration's actions reflect the commitment to stand in respect of all branches of government or honor the guardrails of our democracy?
Thank you very much, Congresswoman, and it's good to see you. This administration has ignored court orders. This administration has ignored the laws that have been passed by the Congress. This administration is, in many ways, telling its agencies not to follow what the laws and the regulations that have been on the books. And this administration has been going after people individually and as groups that they believe are opponents of theirs, political opponents of theirs. That is not the way that a president ought to operate. We ought to have a president who follows the rule of law and doesn't break it.
Thank you, Governor. I agree with you. In your 2025 budget address, you noted that our state, the state of Illinois, is among the best in the nation for workforce talent, clean energy, educational and scientific institutions, and more. I couldn't agree with you more. Our economy is over $1.1 trillion, the 5th largest in the U.S. and the 18th largest in the world. And I understand that we are one of only 9 states, including New York and Minnesota, whose taxpayers contribute more to the federal government than they receive. So I just want to make sure I put that to the record. This is who we're putting here at a hearing. Governor, earlier this year, you noted that the authoritarian playbook is laid bare here. They point to a group of people who don't look like you, and then they tell you to blame them for your problems. Governor Pritzker, do you believe that the Trump administration is using the authoritarian playbook, particularly as it relates to immigrant communities across the country?
It's clear when you look at every action that they've taken with regard to immigration since they've taken office, including going in and attacking our communities in the state of Illinois. I think in the first week in office, Tom Homan bringing Dr. Phil with him unseriously, and then bringing the very serious ICE officials in to break down doors, to scare communities, to keep people from going to work and so on. It is clear that they are targeting communities of people who don't look like them and going after people that they think are opponents of theirs or
including United States senators, Governor.
Including, thank you, and Alex Padilla. And by the way, I want to say to all of you on both sides, but particularly those on the Republican side, that I cannot believe the disrespect that was shown to a United States senator who was thrown down, handcuffed, and not allowed to ask a question of our Secretary of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem. That seems completely irrational.
Governor, I agree with you. And because I have a limited time, I actually want to show the footage because I think what you're saying has to be seen here. I'm going to ask now that we play a clip of Senator Padilla being wrongfully arrested while we're in this hearing. Go ahead and play it. A United States senator. I want to make sure that people see.
Get on my hands. Go ahead. Put him behind my back.
All right. Cool. One hand. Lay flat. Lay flat.
Other hand, sir. Other hand.
There's no recording allowed out here.
What?
I do not know. There's no recording allowed out here per FBI, right?
Yeah, they don't want you recording so that you don't see how they violate due process repeatedly. I want to make sure that you see that footage. This is a United States senator asking a question of Secretary Noem, and in return, he is pulled from the press conference, shoved down to the floor, slammed to the ground with handcuffs, arrested for doing his job of oversight. So let me go ahead and make sure that I say this clear, because I serve in Homeland Security, and I can tell you for a fact, they are weaponizing the government and the military against U.S. citizens to exert control and suppress dissent. I call that authoritarianism. We've seen it before. Here's the point: terror. That's what they're doing here. This hearing is a witch hunt against the governors that run successful cities, and we need to call it what it is. What we need here right now is Secretary Noem answering questions and oversight on why the hell she thinks that what happened to the senator is acceptable. With that, I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. Hopefully you'll get to see the beginning of that tape when he approached the podium where the secretary was. You hadn't seen
To
that
ask
yet?
a question.
Mr. Chairman, on the full statement of the committee on the Democratic side, Senator Padilla is currently in Los Angeles exercising his duty to perform congressional oversight of the federal government operations in Los Angeles and across California. He was in the Wilshire Federal Building to receive a briefing with General Guillot and was listening to Secretary Noem's press conference. He tried to ask the secretary a question and was forcibly removed by federal agents, forced to the ground, as you saw, and handcuffed. He is not currently detained, and we are working to get additional information. And while we respect the Senate's ability to review this as a primary investigation, we also echo Ms. Ramirez's statement that we would like to have an investigation of that incident here from beginning to end.
You want to enter that into the record?
I do.
All right, without objection, so ordered.
Mr. Harris, you represent ISIS Homeland Security Investigations as the Assistant Director for Countering Transnational Organized Crime, correct?
That is correct.
Thank you. Mr. Harris, do you assess that Tren de Aragua is engaged in transnational organized crime? Yes or no?
Yes.
Mr. Harris, is HSI responsible for investigating Tren de Aragua, which includes collecting and providing intelligence about who is and is not a gang member for ICE enforcement and removal operations?
Yes, we do investigate.
Okay. And yes or no, are the tattoos part of that assessment?
It can be.
Okay. So I want to ask you a few questions. These are some real-life examples. If someone has a tattoo with hands praying, are they a gang member? Yes or no?
I have to know more about that
Okay.
than just a tattoo.
So let me ask you then another question. What about someone with an autism awareness tattoo? Are they a gang member?
I would have to know more about the situation than just a tattoo.
I would also agree with that. So let me ask you a question. What about a crown tattoo? Yes or no? A crown with a soccer ball?
Same thing. I would have to know more about the situation.
Mr. Harris, I'm going to ask you again for the record here. What about a tattoo across their chest, perhaps?
I would have to know more about the situation.
Our Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, here. Okay. Mr. Harris, are you aware of any instances in which relying on tattoos has resulted in wrongful ICE arrest or deportations? Are you aware?
I oversee transnational organized crime as far as deportations or removals.
So you're not aware?
I'm not.
Well, thank you, Mr. Harris. Well, according to several resources, including an occasion, the administration has demonstrated that they have not done enough research and investigation. In addition to Andre Hernandez Romero's wrong gang tattoos, they said, of his parents' name with crowns, Neri Alvarado Borges had a colorful tattoo of an autism awareness ribbon for his 15-year-old brother. Jersey Reyes Barrios had a tattoo of a soccer ball with a crown, a tribute to the logo of his favorite soccer team, Real Madrid from Spain. And like them, there were so many more. I just showed you a number of them. DHS has wrongfully detained and deported immigrants and asylum seekers, all based on arbitrary point system that DHS has created. They call it the Alien Enemy Validation Guide. Having a tattoo accounted for 4 points of the 8 needed deemed deportable. Their point system reflects a long legacy of using arbitrary criteria of predefined characteristics to profile, criminalize, marginalize, and punish. The DHS tattoo system reflects the same racist, arbitrary, ignorant activities of this administration's forebears. We make court decisions about the freedom of Black people based on hair. In Hudgens versus Wrights, hair was determined to reveal Black identity more than skin color. We targeted children in indigenous communities who were native cultural attire and sent them to boarding schools. We said anyone with long hair in the 60s was a radical and a communist. We identified gang members using baggy clothes, specific color combinations, and certain hat positioning in the 90s. You see, over and over again, the government has proven that it can't be trusted with expeditious systems of justice based on arbitrary criteria defined by bigoted assumptions about people. Each of these arbitrary systems end up reflecting the worst of our biases. That's the point this administration may revel in, but I, for one, am not comfortable with sloppy, radicalized biases condemning people to a life in CCOT. You see, we can have the constitutional tool to do better. It's called due process. It's actually the only way to ensure that we minimize administrative errors and that arbitrary characteristics and bigoted assumptions do not ruin people's lives. And it's why it's so important that when we're having these conversations in this committee, that we understand that what we use to determine who we deport, who we don't, why we violate due process, when we violate due process, that it has real life consequences. And that our constituents, our children are watching. The idea that they deported parents at a kindergarten graduation this past week is unconscionable. I want to make sure that I remind people of that. And with that, Chairman, I yield back. Last week, I joined Representative Chuy Garcia, Representative Jonathan Jackson, and Representative Danny Davis at the ICE Processing Center at Broadview to investigate ICE's inhumane, unlawful detention of immigrant families and our constituents. The visit to the processing center
comes after credible reports that the center is being used to unlawfully detain immigrants contrary to city and state ordinances, including constituents of the members who sought entry. The report suggests that constituents are being held in the processing center for prolonged periods of time without access to their medication, to legal counsel, or even basic necessities. Let me be very clear. Just because something isn't named a detention facility doesn't mean this administration isn't going to use it as one. If you detain people there, it's a detention facility, period. As a member of the Homeland Security Committee, I came to the Broadview ICE Processing Center to fulfill my congressional oversight authority granted under appropriation laws. Under the law, members of Congress have the authority to enter any facility operated by the Department of Homeland Security used to detain people. Whether the facility is formally identified as a detention facility is irrelevant. The operational capacity of agents and staff at the facility is also irrelevant when it comes to allowing access to members of Congress. It is the role of Congress to provide oversight. Let me say that loud and clear for any of my colleagues that are here that perhaps have forgotten that. It is the role of Congress to provide oversight. I suggest Kristi Noem and DHS staff read Section 527A of the Department of Homeland Security's Appropriation Act of 2024, which is Public Law 118-47. Shocked? Let me be honest, I'm not shocked. We were illegally denied entry, and while we weren't surprised, it was pretty disrespectful for members of Congress to not be able to do their job. I want you to visualize this. You have 4 members of Congress, all of them showing their ID. They're identifying themselves, in addition to wearing their congressional pins. We ring the doorbell, and we're waiting for about 45 minutes. We wait to gain entry into a facility where no one comes to the door at any given time. No one responds through the intercom, of which the cameras demonstrate that someone's watching us. We are waiting there to do the job that we were called to do by law, at which to conduct unannounced oversight. And when we finally get acknowledged, which, by the way, it meant I saw cars, unmarked cars, going in and out of the side gate, as we walked through, we were talking to someone who was unwilling to identify themselves through a little hole through the gate. He refused to identify himself, and when we told him we were there, you know what he said? Given guidance by my superiors, I'm told that you should send an email to dhs.gov. He told 4 members of Congress, including a member of Congress who is the member of Congress in that jurisdiction of where that holding center is, just sent an email. Mr. Speaker, it's really difficult to hear with the background there.
Ask for order. The House will be in order. The gentlewoman is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to make sure that people understand. We have sent emails. We have sent letters. Excuse me, I'm trying to lead my special order hour, and you're very loud. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The gentlewoman is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I appreciate the decorum here. I want to make sure that the American people understand what happened to us. We have sent emails, we have sent letters, we have challenged the illegal, unconstitutional actions of this authoritarian government, and we have not received any responses. It is our job as members of Congress to provide accountability and oversight to the activities of the executive branch, activities that, by the way, this chamber right here funds through appropriations, activities that we authorize or do not through lawmaking, which is our constitutional role. My favorite part of that interaction that day was the sign that staff from the holding center decided an hour and a half of our time outside waiting to be seen, that they placed on the door, which reflects ICE's formal response to our visit. Let me tell you what the sign said. ICE field offices are not detention facilities and fall outside of Section 527 requirements.
When planning a visit to an ICE facility, ICE asks for requests to be submitted at least 72 hours in advance. Visit requests should be submitted during business hours to the Office of Congressional Relations, OCR, at Congress, OICE, at ice.dhs.gov. Visit requests are not considered actionable until receipt of the request is acknowledged by OCR to the requester. Their follow-up email added, ICE does not house aliens at these locations. Rather, these are working offices where ERO personnel process aliens to make custody determinations based on the specific circumstances of each case. Aliens determined to require detention are transferred to an ICE detention facility pending removal or the outcome of the removal proceedings. Due to our high operations tempo, we are not facilitating any visits to ICE field offices or sub-offices at this time. Unbelievable? Maybe. But actually, it is believable, because given Noem's disregard to Congress and the rule of law, this is what they do. Do you know what makes the laws that govern the DHS facilities? You know who makes those laws? Congress. Do you know who doesn't get to just change the rules when they decide? DHS. Do you know what is not a valid consideration for denying illegally required oversight? Your operations tempo. You see, as a result of our visit and the visits of members that they've conducted in New Jersey and California, New York, and Illinois last week, ICE issued new guidance that unlawfully restricts members of Congress to access ICE facilities. You heard me right. They decided that they were going to issue new guidance to go above Congress and further put a policy in place that is against the law. And 2 days ago, Ranking Member Benny Thompson, Ranking Member Jamie Raskin, Subcommittee Ranking Member Lou Correa, and Subcommittee Ranking Member Pramila Jayapal affirmed that Kristi Noem and the Department of Homeland Security, DHS, and Immigration and Customs Enforcement are illegally obstructing congressional oversight by denying members of Congress access to multiple facilities used to detain immigrants in recent weeks. Tonight, over the next 45 minutes or so, I will be here with my colleagues talking to the American people about what is happening, what we're hearing directly from them, and how we will continue to assert congressional authority, even if Kristi Noem, even if Stephen Miller, even if RFK, and everyone else in that cabinet attempts to obstruct us from doing our congressional work of congressional authority and legislative action. With that, I want to yield to my colleagues who will share how they have attempted to provide oversight despite this hostile administration's lack of respect for Congress as a co-equal branch of government, and how we're actively defending our communities against this authoritarian agenda. I would like to yield to the gentleman from Louisiana, Mr. Carter.
Thank you, Congresswoman, and thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to affirm a simple truth. Congress is a co-equal branch of government, not a ceremonial afterthought, not merely a suggestion box, not someone that's along for the ride. We are constitutionally equal with our powers delineated in Article 1 of the United States Constitution. Yet under the Trump administration, we've witnessed a disturbing pattern, a blatant disregard for the constitutional role of government and of Congress, and its vital duty for oversight. Subpoenas ignored, testimonies blocked, oversight treated not as a safeguard, not as a constitutional role or duty of democracy, but as an inconvenience of power. An inconvenience of having the audacity to do our jobs and to make sure, yes, sir, that you are doing yours, because that's a part of our responsibility. It's what we take our oath of office for. It's what the Constitution and the framers of the United States Constitution envisioned when they set out some 237 years ago to write the United States Constitution, that no one body would become so powerful that it can do as it pleases without any checks or balances. Let me be clear. This is not about partisan politics. It's about the preservation of our republic. When an administration, past, present, or future, believes it can operate without oversight or accountability, democracy begins to erode. Congress has both the authority and the obligation to shine light into the darkest corners of our government. Oversight is not an obstruction, it's a constitutional duty.
That's right.
We owe it to the American people to ask hard questions, to demand honest answers, and to ensure that no one, and I mean no one, not even the president, is above the law. That's not defiance, that's democracy. I yield back.
Thank you. The greatest threat to public safety in Chicago is ICE and CBP. I think it's important that we lift up just how out of control and unaccountable DHS is. On Friday, October 3rd, rogue federal agents deployed chemical agents less than 1 block in my neighborhood from Chicago's Funston Elementary School. And while warning that the unleashed terror would have on pedestrians, consumer grocery shopping, and even children playing in the school lot. On October 9th, U.S. District Judge Sarah Ellis ordered federal agents in the Chicago area to wear visible identification and limit the use of anti-riot weapons such as pepper balls and tear gas. Mr. Fee, to your knowledge, are federal agents complying with the judge order, yes or no?
There have been many instances of violations of the order, and the litigation team, of which I'm a part, have been bringing those to the judge's attention in real time.
Thank you, Mr. Fee.
Yes.
Thank you. And despite the court ordering them to stop, as you're saying, federal agents continue to disregard the rule of law. On October 12th, in Albany Park, on a residential block, at least 4 vehicles with federal agents tear gassed residents without warning. The reckless behavior of these agents executing Operation Midway Blitz is well known to all those seeking to protect our neighbors. Ms. De Jesus Alejandre, can you briefly speak to the kind of recklessness and the intimidation that rapid response teams are witnessing on the ground?
Yeah, that one was a couple blocks from my house. I remember with my twins who also have disabilities, like we couldn't leave the house until at least 5 p.m. that day.
Turn your microphone on.
Yeah, sorry, it's on, but I'll get closer. The recklessness we see is that they will just throw, they're ready. You could see them. They come angry. They come ready to confront. They're dangerous, and they want to cause harm. The point is terror, right? The point is to escalate so that they have the excuse and the cover to keep doing whatever they want to do to us.
Thank you. Federal agents are violating our rights. They're threatening our leaders. They're snatching people without warrants based on the color of our skin. 2 examples of their unconscionable behavior. One Sunday, September 29th, Noemi, Jaime, and their 2 children were on a family outing downtown Chicago, just a couple blocks from here. They were profiled, separated, and detained. But we fought back, and with the help of NIJC and advocates, Noemi and the children have returned home. And we continue to fight so that Jaime, the husband, could come home. And last Saturday, Ruben Torres Maldonado was kidnapped at a Home Depot without a warrant while picking up material to finish a job to pay for his daughter's chemotherapy. She has stage 4 cancer. She and her family are my constituents. And if you want to know the depth of the administration's inhumanity and immorality, look no further than to Ruben and Ofelia. We are fighting for Ruben, and hopefully in the next few hours, we will get good news on the case. But listen, we could be demoralized. But action is the antidote to despair. We are fighting, we are resisting, we're protecting each other. I could never be more proud than the community, my district, this city, and those of us that are fighting back. Commissioner Jessica Vasquez, who was here just a moment ago, who serves in this boardroom, had to return back to the community. So did Alderwoman Rosana Rodriguez Sanchez and Rep. Lillian Jimenez to deal with the raids that are happening right now in our community. We will continue to organize because we know that fascism always requires a public enemy, but we will not be broken. We will not bend the knee. We will hold them accountable. And this hearing is one step towards that. Thank you, Congresswoman Jayapal, for your leadership, for your constant leadership, and for the work we will do.